Are you all? Meeting, okay.
Here's the Edmund Van. That's me. Yeah.
We are recording.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. We have some guests this morning. Let's see, my name is Harrison Pierce. I'm Chairman of Health and Human Services. We will move on to the agenda for today. First item is approval of the January 5th, 23 minutes. Any comments, questions, corrections?
Make a motion as part of still to accept the minutes and their very nice job as always.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alyssa, for doing that. One comment is, I think when you link the Jen's and Bethany's reports in, it's a good way of doing it. Because it's, you know, as opposed to having 10, 11, very close.
I'll do that.
So that's what, can you do that?
Definitely.
All right, next item on the agenda, reports, Health Department.
Okay, so Jen Isleson, Director of Health. So one of the changes of this Friday will be the last PCR testing at Irwin Park. We're gonna just move it to Vine Cottage. So it'll be the same thing, 7 to 10 a.m. It's just instead of using, 2 buildings, we'll just stick to Vine Cottage. And demand has been very low. Of course, next week we'll be doing testing for a mission trip for one of the churches, so. So people know it's still there, it's just not gonna be at Irwin. So sadly, my Anna won't be working for me anymore, but I'd like to thank Anna Krolikowski and Jenny Esposito, because I couldn't have done it the last 3 years without them. They really did a lot of work for us, not only with testing, but the vaccine clinics too.
Yeah.
The vaccine clinics will stay at Irwin on Thursdays for now, for February. And then probably in March, that will move over to Vine too, so we can get all our stuff out of there and just work out of one building. Which would be nice. Cases, right now we have around 20 this week. So it's not that bad, down from last week. In the data, you can see the hospitalizations have gone down, which is good news. The Omicron variant XBB continues to rise and be the dominant variant. Also down in January, building permits were almost in half, kind of typical for January. We're just hoping it's not kind of a wave of what happens this spring, for revenue purposes. We did provide budget presentation last week to BOS. Bethany and I met with the liaison for Town Council and Board of Finance on Tuesday. And then next Thursday night, I present and Bethany presents at Board of Finance next Thursday night. So, and the only major items for the health department for the budget is the capital of online permitting request and another vehicle for staff. The online permitting, something's way overdue. We only accept paper checks. You can't even pay by credit card. You can't do anything online, like we're stuck in the 80s. So everybody's really looking forward to this. And the company that I've been working with is already in 50 municipalities in Connecticut, including Darien and Reading and Ridgefield. So looking forward to that. We'll see where that goes. I did submit the state annual report. So that's all set. I also submitted the latest financial report for the FEP grant. So we're still moving along. There is going to be in the next coming year, 2 additional grants. One for workforce development and another one for immunizations. They haven't worked out of how much we're going to get. If they're going to do it by population or, how they're going to do it. We're also still waiting on money for the lead changes because, the lead lower levels of the 3.5 went into effect a couple weeks ago, a month ago, January 1st. And in 1 month, I got 7 cases. So they were supposed to give us ARPA funds from the state, and they still haven't done that. They still haven't figured out if it's going to go by population or number of cases or what. So we do have money coming down the pipe at some point, and I'll be working with our grant writer, Greg, on those grants whenever they release what the criteria would be, and I'll be very happy to not have to do it myself anymore and give it to Greg. Yep,
The workforce development.
the CDC gave the state health department 32 or 33 million dollars. And the state's keeping roughly, state health department's keeping roughly 20 million of that. And then the other 13 million will be dispersed, and it has to be dispersed per the CDC requirement to the other 60 some odd health departments in the state.
For some specific purpose or just?
We don't know yet. They haven't figured that out, but they're on a crunch to get this to us. So in order to get it to us, for us to write the grant and the Attorney General to approve the grant, they gotta figure this out sooner than later. Because that's the question. Is it gonna be for our existing staff and get them more training? Or are we gonna be able to hire more like, you know, fresh out of school kids? So we don't really know yet.
So the workforce development really is to develop the next group of generation of planners, succession planning to get things done.
And is Barb Ackenbaum, are you on? I'm gonna zoom in this morning.
Right there. No, I don't see it.
Thank you, Jen. For doing that. It's amazing how the level is, I used to be 25, 20, 50, and 3.5 is,
I mean, as a public health, you know, thing, obviously, you know, pediatrician led bioaccumulates in the body. So it is very important. They're just now falling in line with the CDC guidelines. So we'll see.
so I did go to the budget presentation that Jen presented to the Board of Selectmen, and Bethany did also. So there's not only numbers, but the whole scheme of what each department does, and it was very impressive. I think they were impressed, and the audience, although small, was appreciative of everything that's been done. Yes, human services. Bethany?
Hi, everybody, Beth Mazzaro, Human Services. We'll start out with the basics. Food pantry, what we're finding is this month, the social services or SNAP is stopping the $95 additional monthly credit to food stamps. Come on and sit down here. For food stamps, and as a result, we're gonna probably get a hit in the number of clients continuing up for the food pantry. So that was news we received from the state. So we're probably getting a reaction from that. The food pantry. Let me see, Marcy and I are becoming certified grief counselors and hopefully starting, support groups where needed. At this point, we're seeing Lapham Community Center offering. And then it was requested by the schoolhouse board, the senior housing in town, that there's someone from the town representing the town on the board. So I've accepted that seat. So I will be going to their meetings and we'll be able to report back on senior housing situations. You saw Marcy and Jackie's reports on their referrals, and they're just, continuously coming in. Their access to resources and being able to navigate people's individual situations has gone really well. Behavioral health, unfortunately, we had an untimely death this month. What happened as a result of that in terms from the town perspective, I brought together the post-action crisis team. It's called PACT. And in the event of an untimely death, there are profound effects on the community. So we formed a team to deal with the tragedy in hopes of providing more support and to decrease the amount of potential contagion or a suicide. And the team consists of New Canaan municipal departments and area agencies. Excuse me. So we convene, we have a plan, we have a point person for the family, and as well as the town. I am the point person, and we're just going we'll do a follow-up meeting when needed, but right now the family is being taken care of and community resources are being disseminated. And then lastly, the behavioral health update from the New Canaan Urgent Assessment Program. You received the statistics. The highlights are January was the largest month of assessments cases that were done. There were 14 cases, so they're averaging about 3 to 4 a week now. Our maximum was 5. So the next busiest months were September and October. So as we navigate through the year of this pilot program, we are seeing definitely a need for this in the community. We've had a total of 61 cases, assessments that have been done since July 7th. The age ranges, the highest 35% have been adolescents in the 13 to 17-year-old category. And then the next one has been young adults and children 12 and under. They have both come in at 16%. Oh, and then adults 27 to 60, 28%. Primary complaints, depression, anxiety, mood dysregulation, substance use, suicidality, and psychosis. Most of the assessments have been done 79% New Canaan residents. And the referral sources, New Canaan schools have been the largest referral, followed by community members reaching out, being aware of the program and giving the information to somebody who's in need, as well as the New Canaan moms. They've been instrumental. And then we go down to the websites, the town of New Canaan, mental health providers, pediatricians, and New Canaan Care Support Group. So these are great areas that information is getting sent through and to. And so that being said, I think it's a timely thing. We have today Kids in Crisis. The Teen Talk counselor is Greg Sloan from the high school, Carla Gretto, is that right? From the middle school Teen Talk counselor. And this is where Kids in Crisis, this is one of the grants that we give each year and to be able to have this in the school situations, in the school environment. And this is totally separate from the Board of Ed or any child's documentation and file. And so parents as well as children feel very free to come in and use the services that are provided. So
Yeah, let's move to new business. Are Ellen and Sherry coming or no?
Ellen's coming, she was just stepping on the track.
All right, so maybe we'll just hold off until she gets here.
okay.
Yeah, so Bethany covered most things regarding the urgent assessment. There was a meeting this week, attended by about 40 people, right with there. It was mostly about marketing, promotion, et cetera. And the numbers that you just reported are good. Significant improvement since, the last meeting when it was one per week or whatever, it was not going to fly long term. And lots of people had good input. It was like, what do we do with our website? And was that way to reaching people who, so marketing, promotion, meeting with groups like the Y, the Lapham, et cetera, and other ways to do. And just personal contacts, Voices was pushing the personal contacts, which is how they work. So all in all, it was a good meeting. I think if we had looked at all the numbers, maybe the person there referred 1 or 2, which I share every year. But so it's moving forward, and the January numbers were good. So okay, so Kids in Crisis. So we have Ellen and Greg and Carla. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do and how we don't know.
Sure, and I apologize.
And then we'll ask some questions.
Sure, yeah. So I'll let Carla and Greg just talk about what they do day to day, and then I have some statistics that I can share with you guys for the first half of this year. And then we'll open it for questions.
Sure. So it's new to the middle school this year. my day typically is meeting with students. They'll come in voluntarily, or it's a referral from their counselor or an administrator. I see a lot of like anxiety, school avoidance, a lot of cyberbullying, and kids being bullied. Usually talk about what's going on, see if they want their school counselor involved. If they do, then we'll take care of it. And they really just want someone to talk to. That's really what I see and notice. And once they feel like heard, they are like in a better mood after like 20 minutes of just like a little pep talk almost. And we'll meet again and I'll do a lot of check-in. It'll depend on the student. So one student I've been checking in very weekly. For about 2 months, to say, to see if they're okay. That's really it. A lot of meetings, collaborating with social workers, school counselors, going to all those meetings. So, yeah.
This is my second year at New Canaan High School. I know the program has been in existence a little bit longer at the high school. Last year, I think I started in October, so October through June, I met with over, 55 students over the course of the year. This year, I'm starting in September, I'm already at 45. It's the same themes for urgent assessment of what we see at the high school. I'm happy to say that out of those 60 some odd cases, at least 4 of them are attached to me, that I've had a direct pipeline. And just, students either come on a regular basis, or sometimes I feel like it's kind of as needed, and they are always impressed if you they just like to pick up where they left off. It could be months in between, but they're kind of impressed that you kind of are just with them. Definitely similar to Carla, collaborate with the school staff, social workers, psychologists, teachers, definitely the school counselors. And, in some cases, we try not to overlap. In some cases, we do work together on some cases. And I'm also part of an advisor for a small group of students called the Mental Health Club, who want to promote positive mental health messages throughout the community, and just kind of reduce the stigma, things like that. And it's going pretty well. The goal ultimately is to, try to get to the parents, and in a lot of cases, it does that. They build up a trusting relationship.
So when do you contact the parent or not?
For me, I would say it varies. I know like the guidelines are, you want to, some students feel like they just need a service like I'm providing. I would say a lot of students that I see are already in outside therapy, that sort of thing. And in some cases, the goal is to incorporate the parents because they might need more support than I can provide. So it definitely varies, but it's always kind of on the radar, with.
It's always the goal
Mhm.
to incorporate the parent. It just depends, some students will just give you really a lot of resistance and they won't come see you if they think their parents are involved. But many times over time, as the relationships develop, the trust develops, they will allow the counselor at least to just say, I want you to know I'm seeing your child. We may not have to, divulge all the things that we talk about, but I will say if safety is ever an issue, confidentiality is gone. That is the rule, that if there is ever an issue with safety, then we need to tell the parents and we need to tell the school.
Well, the first is thank you for what you do for our kids and everything and being there for them. That's number one. And number two, we've talked as a commission about how to address the stigma of reaching out for help. And I think that's something that we can continue to help support. Where do they find time in their schedule, though, to have a downtime, to be able to come in and sit for 15 or 20 minutes? Because my school, I don't, even though it was in one classroom, log cabin. we really didn't have a lot of time in between classes to reach out to somebody.
So at the middle school, they have a workshop period, and that's where we really strongly encourage them to come, so they're not missing out on their classes. Some will come if they're avoiding a class, or if there's someone in there that is causing them like some stress, they'll come during that period, give the teacher a phone call, sit with them for like 15 minutes. And get them back to class, and they'll know that plan. That's how I said, like, you can stay here for 15 minutes, we'll talk about it, then if you're good to go, I'm gonna send you back to class. And also during lunch. A lot of like lunch groups, lunches is the activity for them.
The high school is a little more challenging because they have an 8-day rotating schedule, so, you know, I worked in schools a long time, and usually Tuesday, fifth period, like, I'll see you next Tuesday, fifth period, but it's always different because of the schedule, but, you know, we communicate a lot through email. I see a student this week, they may not have the same free until 9 days later, so it's a little bit more of a challenge, plus, you know, typically at the high school, kids are overextended, clubs, sports, just like they're doing everything, and that's a source of pressure in itself. But I do think they find the time, and they, you know, when they need it, come in early, I left late, that sort of thing, whatever they kind of need, whatever works for them.
In terms of, broader health in the community, you guys develop instincts and insights about root cause, things that we might want to be aware of that communicate to other folks, like pressure, stress, college, and what are some of the themes that, further things may be driving this that we can affect over time?
I think all of those exist, the pressures of college, those are, for me, I feel like I typically see, like, not your typical New Canaan high school student. If you form an image in your head, I think there's a growing number of kind of different families moving in, and it's interesting that my caseload, I believe, is made up of kids who kind of don't fit the mold and the challenges that they feel living in the community. I don't know if that's a new thing. It's what I've experienced over 2 years. And, listening to them talk about trying to fit in, I think is challenging at times.
I do think the academic pressure and stress, and sometimes it's just what they put on themselves, just living in, this part of the country. It's not just New Canaan, it's Jericho County, definitely, and Westchester County. But so I think there's a lot of that gets either, from outside forces or from their own motivation and drive. Greg has brought in therapy dogs, emotional support dogs, especially during exam time. That's when they're usually allowed in. So in between exams, they can come either to his office or they're in the hallways or things like that. So I don't know, Carla, if you have any other insight into.
I'd say the stress and pressure, I'm seeing a lot of 8th graders now getting really nervous for high school. And like where they're gonna fit in and who they're gonna sit with and be with and find their way around the school, but that's what I've been seeing recently.
It's nice to
Research
hear.
has showed that, they've lost at least a third of an academic year. So is that carrying over? Is that added to the stress, or?
Because of COVID.
I think it's carrying over in a sense of behavior. I think typically 9th grade teachers say, I haven't seen these behaviors in a while because they're more typical of middle school, but they miss a good year and a half of their development and their, those kind of behaviors. So I think and everyone, no matter what stage they were at during the lockdown, experienced something different. So you have seniors who might have missed part of 9th and 10th grade, which was a key, and then you have 10th graders who middle school might have missed, so it does impact for sure. Still, I think, and it comes up, the kids bring it up, it's whatever they're struggling with, it's as a side note, oh yeah, we were on lockdown for a year and a half to 2 years, it didn't help matters.
You mentioned bullying too, and then school avoidance, there were multiple factors, maybe the academics too, I'm stressed from that. How about the substance abuse? You have any anything into that same, worse COVID related, not,
you know, for me, I think the biggest thing we see and hear about and talk to kids about is vaping. It's become, kind of go to that, you know. And I've been involved, the administrators like when someone is caught in school to be able to see someone like myself for a few meetings or whatever, and, sometimes they say the same thing, they say, oh, I shouldn't have brought it to school, and my point is, like, there's a little bit more to it than that, it's become like kind of, you know, I don't want to say normalized, but it's out there, and, it's definitely in the community, so it's a concern of mine.
Do you know roughly what percentage of the kids that come see you have outside therapy versus you're their only practitioner?
That's a good question. I know when I started, I was, you know, not that familiar with the community, and I was surprised that I kept hearing it repeatedly. I could probably get a, you know, more of an accurate answer if I look at my caseload and everything, but I remember my initial response being like, wow, because I'm coming, you know, from different experience where that wasn't the case.
So you're saying most of the kids have
I
outside?
don't know about most, but this is a significant number do.
And just so you know, that Teen Talk is really not supposed to be like a private practice in the school. We're really supposed to be more for crisis, intervention, short term. And then if you see that there are needs that are greater, then we try to refer out. You know, sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes there's waiting lists, sometimes, you know, so that we try to fill the gap. But that's really not the goal for us to be the only provider if there's a bigger problem. You know, sometimes it's test anxiety or relationship issues with peers. Those are things that you can deal with in the school. But if it's self-harm or suicidal ideation, then it really needs to go somewhere.
A question for Paula. You're in SAC, which ranges from 5th through 8th, so it's a big, like, two different worlds. Do you cover the whole range, and you have children in the 5th, 6th, the younger group as well? What do you see in terms of demand? And how long did it take you to get busy when you were rushing?
I do see 5th through 8th, and it is a different world, like these 5th graders, and like, wow, it's like I see a 5th grader, and then I go from talking to the 5th grader, speaking to the 8th grader, and it's like completely different. I have a few in each grade that I see. How long I got busy, I think it took like 2 weeks to really, like, for the students to know where I am. And then we put like, there's a SACS weekly, so then kids got like notified and everything. So now like this week has been very busy for me.
Thank you for taking time out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot of referrals from administration, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then, yeah.
which is a little different than the high school, whereas as they've gotten to know Greg, they're almost self-referring or they're referring to friends. You know, he still gets from the nurse and.
The nurse especially, this
Yeah.
is my location.
Kids are trying to serve other school districts. or
Yes.
things like this. Do you have any in the elementaries?
We are starting one in Greenwich. Hopefully this spring at Hamilton Avenue Elementary School in Greenwich. It's a pilot program, so we just got a grant to start that. Yeah, because we're seeing the need as young as elementary, unfortunately.
The social pressure component, I mean, big believer in peer-to-peer support, peer-to-peer learning and stuff like that. So the academic pressure are you seeing changes in those dynamics? People not belonging and people being shunned, or where's the momentum in that world?
I would say everything that you're imagining like goes on, there is a little bit of everything. Last year, when the students had approached the administration about wanting to start that mental health club, I had a group of seniors, and when I started in October, it was approached like, hey, they need an advisor, and it seemed like kind of a natural fit. One of their goals was, you know, and we did it more into the spring to go to SACS, and they peer-to-peer did lessons about the pressures of high school, and it was really well received. We're trying to get it off the ground this year. The group that I had last year was larger and mostly seniors, and they graduated, so I have a few that I'm trying to groom and work with. We're involved with the woman from the Powerhouse Theater doing Ordinary People, and we're trying to get word out. They're going to do a special presentation for New Canaan High School students and, the feedback from Silver Hill, so. It's just to promote issues like you're talking, because they exist, the pressures, and that community, to me, I remember the movie from the eighties is kind of similar to New Canaan, so I think it's relatable and still very valid, all those type of issues and, pressures.
People feeling isolated and I'm in this like tough little world that they feel, oh my God, other people feel this. It's a huge relief, at the least, and especially coming from other peers. I mean, just programmatically, really interested in any advice I'm sure you're giving to the school, but that can be a softer approach that can actually have a lot of impact.
Yeah, we think of isolation and loneliness with our senior citizens, but existing in the school system too, which is problematic.
Especially after COVID. It's more prevalent.
Hey, question on the legal dynamics, and historically, Kids in Crisis was the hot potato operation I always viewed at the school, because they were handling things that the school administration could not. We're talking about when you make the judgment, there was a case for a student. To other facilities within the school, are there legal guidelines as to you have to pay attention to? Because I'm thinking if the Board of Education is paying for the SACS program, that could be a long-term issue, maybe the legal item.
In terms of, once we see the level of acuity of a case and we decide that it needs to then be presented to the school, that you're.
Yeah, or when you get these other, the school administration involved as well as the parents, et cetera. But there's my recollection from history was that this simple reason for Kids in Crisis was they were doing things the school administration could not touch, as well as the kid's psyche, basically.
Yeah, I think, there are times, I think when we make referrals outside referrals, that it's easier for us to make those referrals than for school personnel to do that. Because there's some question about payment and who's paying and, that kind of thing. But if it comes from an outside agency, that's just a recommendation, a therapeutic recommendation. But again, if it's a matter of safety, then, that has to go to the school. Like, we would never have an ambulance come to the school or a DCF worker or something like that without the school knowing about it.
I was gonna say, and my response to what you were saying is, it seems much more collaborative now, like I'm just involved. Some of the students, the administrators know that, when they go down and talk to their school counselor, for example, it kind of could, because it's all about school performance and academics, so they kind of like, when they hear that I don't work for the school per se, they kind of like that, because it's a different thing, so.
That clearly is a role that it's the students at least look at it as a major.
Besides, anxiety and depression kind of follow along, and vaping, certainly you can see from the little USB drive and easy something to hide. Is there any other things like self-medicating that you're seeing or starting to see as a trend, increased self-medication? Things of that nature, especially around testing time, high anxiety, stress, focusing their attention, anything like that that you think that as a commission we should be aware of?
Nothing that stands out, that other than that we covered ideas and thought. No, I think we've covered like kind of the basics of what I see.
And they do, also, the teen talk counselors do something called SBIRT, which is screening, I forget what it stands for now, but it's basically a 5 to 7 questionnaire that talks about substance use. So usually if they see a child twice or more, they will administer that screening, just ask those certain questions about substance use. And then if needed, refer them out for service. So they sort of have a good handle on it.
And just to follow that, is that information shared with the administration, with the board?
Again,
Is that
only if
shared?
there's.
I don't mean in terms of individual names, but
Oh.
in terms of statistics
Yeah.
that we're starting to
Yes.
see. Where does that information get shared?
So we do an end of the year report that Bethany gets. And then, and we can, that's public information. We can share that with whoever would like that.
Yeah, so like that, yes, the child guidance and kids in crisis. They give me the reports. Ellen, also, Teen Talk Counselor is one aspect of kids in crisis. And if you could go into that as well.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so
So, yeah,
it starts with Teen Talk. I think,
Yes.
in terms of on the front line.
yes. So we always say that Teen Talk is,
I think as a commission, we're very interested in lower acuity situations that are not going in a good direction, because I think the town is actually good where it gets very urgent, but we all know that it's tougher in general out there, and as you frame kind of kids in crisis, because the name self-suggests something, but we're really interested in programs that can identify or communications around lower acuity that are going down there. So in your overview, if you could just kind of weave that in, that would be.
Sure. And I think that's the whole purpose of having Teen Talk in the school,
Right.
is to catch the kids who might be flying under the radar, but have this low level kind of angst or anxiety, depression, and get to it before
Yeah.
it gets to the higher level. So, but we always say that Teen Talk is not necessarily a person, it's a program. Because we have that 24/7 piece, so that in their email signatures, when they're talking to the kids, they always give out the helpline, because Kids in Crisis has a helpline that's manned 24/7 by trained counselors. Counselors, not mental health master level like these guys, but definitely trained to answer the phones. And then these guys also take 2 to 3 shifts per month on call, so that if somebody answers that phone at Kids in Crisis and it's a higher risk situation or needs more, one of the Teen Talk counselors then is called in to do that. So we have in the summer, the Teen Talk counselors usually give a list of kids that they're kind of worried about to our outreach counselors, and they make that connection usually once a week or so, just to make sure they're doing okay and if they need anything more. So that's the piece. And then the other piece of Kids in Crisis is the respite program, where kids can go into the shelter, kids from 0 to 17 go into the shelter and spend 2 to 4 weeks. Whether their caregiver is sick, is out of the country, whatever it is, and they need a place to stay. Sometimes it's because they're unstably housed. Oftentimes it's more, well, that's what we have right now at the shelter. Unfortunately, we're full on, there are children who the housing situation is a problem. But many times we see just tension between caregiver and child, and they need a break from each other. And then Kids in Crisis, while they're there, will provide some family counseling, put in some more supports. If outside counseling is already there, we can provide that. Sometimes kids come into the shelter, they haven't had an eye exam or a dental appointment, or for whatever reason, and they need some mental health issues with their caregivers. And so they need to sort of get back on track and get everybody settled. So, so that is also a big component of what Kids in Crisis does. I don't know if that answered.
I was just saying, I was thinking about, the handful of kids that I have referred to urgent assessment. So without the Kids in Crisis program and without urgent assessment, these are kids that were just under the radar, but there was something there. So I think there's more. And I think, I'm so thankful for programs like that. And so are the families, that we obviously have to get involved and get the kids there.
What are your experiences and credentials, like Carla and
So Carla's a master's level social worker.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah.
I have a master's in counseling psychology, and I was a counselor and administrator over in New Rochelle schools for many years, and it's like a second career for me, and I'm enjoying it.
So all the Teen Talk counselors have masters in some sort of clinical mental health background, whether it's social work, professional counseling, marriage and family therapy.
I hope it was some of the 2 owners of the task, but if you guys keep information, we love data for myself. If we could see data quarterly or some way, I think that would be very helpful, especially as you said, Greg, this time last year, this year over year, we've seen a dramatic increase. Being that, I think would be helpful information to us.
I mean, and just to tell you that we gave Bethany some information in November 21st. And so Greg was seeing 29 students, now he's up to 45. So just in that period, great, a couple of months, And Carla was seeing 28, now she's at 36, something like that.
We'll see that type of, helps bring a team around you and however we can, where you get other nonprofits involved or whatever we can do. It also brings a lot of weight to grant writing and things of that nature and
Do you
funding.
have any schools where you've got two people on?
We don't, we wish we did, but we don't, yeah. We do have some social work interns that have worked in school. This year we have two or three, actually. Yeah, so that helps, especially in places like Norwalk. They're seeing up to 200 kids. It's amazing.
Well,
Yeah, so,
where are the others? KIC
yeah.
programs.
So we have three, well, we have 4 in Greenwich right now, so all three middle schools have Team Talk Counselor, and the Boys and Girls Club of Greenwich has one. And then we're starting the one at Hamilton Avenue Elementary. And then Stanford has one at AITE. And then Norwalk has one at Norwalk and Brian McMahon. We have one at Westport, it's Staples, Wilton High School, we just filled that position again, that was vacant for a while. Ridgefield has 3, 2 in their middle schools and 1 in the high school. Newtown has 1 in the middle school and 1 in the high school. I think I got it right. Darien, here's for us, September. They just put it in their budget.
Do you feel like it's manageable? I think Saks used to be the biggest middle school in the state. Do you feel like it's manageable for one counselor?
I work closely with the social workers also and the counselors, so we all collaborate, and if there's like one counselor's out this week, I'm being sent for students, so it's like very collaborative, so it's definitely manageable.
And do you think that, I mean, this is kind of a subjective question, but do you think there's like any expectations that you're seeing from the students that they have of the adults, like the adult residents of New Canaan that they're not getting or that they'd like to see? I went through the school, so I remember feeling like we had a lot of conversations about substance use, and yet parents were getting absolutely bombed at like events that kids were supposed to be at. So I always felt like there was a disconnect between what was expected of us, what we expected of each other, and what the adults in the room were doing. Do you feel like they still feel like there's a disconnect, or do they feel like they can talk to adults?
I think they're more comfortable now. I can definitely see that for some of my students, and they're very hesitant. So coming in, a lot of the 5th graders, I'm right by the 5th grade hallway, and they'll like come by and they're curious, but
Yeah.
I don't know, but they're very open once they come in and they realize like, oh, this is a safe place, to talk to you. If their school counselor isn't available, then they come to me too, but I can see that with all the grades, but I think with 6th, yeah, they're still like learning.
I would agree, and I think, sometimes the 9th graders are the hardest to reach, but now that Carla's at Saks, there's gonna be a built-in kind of transition internally, because, the counselors are hesitant to share until they get to know the students, but now that we collaboratively, and I hope that the 9th graders like slow, same as the 5th grade, they kind of walk by. But, little by little, just because they're not used to it.
Yeah, and we'll make a time for Greg to go over to Saks this spring to meet the 8th graders so that they have a face. There's a name and a face, so that hopefully that will take away some of that discomfort.
It's a scary thing.
It is, it's a big place, yeah.
Even all the schools you're in or communities, is there any way to do some benchmarking? Because we'd like to know, it'd be really interesting to know, because the general socioeconomic issues are similar, pressures and stuff like that. It'd be great to know, like, hey, you guys particularly keep an eye on this area and this area, because we're hearing more issues here than we do across the other communities. It'd be really useful to know,
Sure,
like,
yeah.
things that are sticking out that, hey, you should really be on this, because this is really rising quicker than other places, or you guys are doing a great job over here. That'd just be really great to know.
Sure.
We've got this broader set of insights and data.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can get that for you. I will say that across the board, anxiety and depression are the biggest presenting problems. I mean, in any school we are in.
even among adults.
Yes, even among adults, but, and we're seeing it younger and younger.
But I'd encourage, like, even qualitatively, because I don't know how you get data on the root cause kind of stuff. That would also be really interesting, knowing that it's gonna be qualitative, like if you guys talk to your peers, hey, relative to the other times, we're hearing this a lot more. That would just be really useful for us.
And I'll just give the agency some credit. You know, I work in a school system. I never had as much supervision as I have. So we meet weekly and we collaborate, you know, with the other 15 or so counselors. And it's really helpful, you know, talk about what they're seeing and their ideas and stuff. So that's a real positive.
Ellen, who finances the elementary school council?
So, we got a grant from, it was called Pitch Your Peer. It's a foundation in Greenwich. So, I'm not sure what I'm not sure if any of the money's coming from the town, because the 3 elementary schools are from the town budget. So there might be some town money in there, but it's a grant, a 2-year grant. And then we're hoping that the town will come in and help them.
Thank you. I'm going to mention this briefly, carry on, but Jackie DeLuise is involved.
Hi.
There are issues in the school system and that, small percentage, but growing and but how are we handling that? I guess we can say that for another.
Well, I didn't mention that another program of Kids in Crisis is the Lighthouse Program, which is a program for the LGBTQ population. We have groups in Greenwich, Stamford, and Westport right now. We have a director of that program. She also may be hoping to do a virtual option for those who can't travel. But she's always available to all the teen pop counselors, and she can, if there is a student in particular that wants to talk to her about that. But
The school, the high school GSA club, I've introduced Phoebe from the Lighthouse program to the advisor of the club, and it has to be student driven, but the students want to have her come in and speak, and it's going to happen probably this month.
I didn't know, Barb, did you have a question, Barb?
You're on
Oh,
mute.
Hi, yeah, sorry to be, thank you so much. This has been so informative and I'm really appreciative of it. I just had a question about funding in terms of how much funding is state or federal and versus private or foundations. And also, are you having any challenges with getting your funding from the state?
you don't get state funding for this program. It's all local. It's all local.
Oh, sorry, I
funding.
didn't know that. I'm sorry, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
all local
So-
and grant. Yeah.
Okay.
foundation. Yeah.
And so that's been going well in terms of getting, it sounds like you already got another new grant recently and
Yeah,
People
I
are
mean, I think, mental health is on everybody's minds these days. So yes, there's some more opportunities out there, but there's also budget cuts and, things like that. And sometimes those programs are the first to go. So we're always on edge about our funding.
okay, thank you. That was my question.
Okay.
Any other questions for Greg or Carla? Anyone? Well, listen, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I get from the schools, they are so appreciative of their being there. You're so helpful, et cetera. And they're always thinking, Jen is buzzing me on my phone. And it's like, it's so good to have you. And thank you for watching.
I just jump in as a parent and commissioner and say I feel so much better knowing you guys are there. It's a really amazing resource, so thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for all your support. Thank you. And anytime you have questions, reach out.
Thank you, guys. Yeah. Bye.
That was very helpful. Thanks for organizing that.
Great. They are. And it's lovely to have.
They're so much.
Yeah.
Seriously, so much.
They're both appreciated. Okay, so let's move on. That we did deal with our the next item, which is the pact. Kind of the untimely death and what we're doing. The only thing I'll probably add to that is, so there was a meeting online and Jessica Welch, who's child guidance, and Dr. Welch, she's a PhD, and I've heard her speak before. Stanford Pediatric Department, and she's very impressive and very good in experience. And you know, her bottom line was, you do make contact in a situation like this, but then you do have to back off, because you can't really. I think you're intrusive, it sets up a negative relationship. You just make initial contact, let them know what is available in terms of resources, and that helps. And Julianne Green from Center for Hope was also another one who had the best experience dealing with these issues. That's in Darien, also is all the book, but and last year with the Darien scenario, three untimely deaths, out of experience, and she said, you know, just make that initial contact, and you have to really back off, and she said often it takes a month or so before you can really be receptive to help. So those are a couple of things out of our pact. Meeting, anything else you want to mention about that? I know you did address it, that thing, but so it's up, it's functioning. Also, there was a this is from Greenwich too. It's the Greenwich Suicide Postvention Response Team, which you sent around, which did you send it to the commission? No.
It's not done. So Ellen is working with Greenwich. Brzezinski is working with Greenwich. They have it's outdated, and so they're updating their prevention card. It's like the assessment card for Silver Hill. And when she's done that, the painter is going to copy it with our information. And so it's a best practice type situation. So I will send it to you when it is updated with our name on it, and our resources.
Excellent. I would just add, Waveney Life Care offers a bereavement program, and most of the people who come into the bereavement program are hospice families that come into it. I mean, that's really the direct link. If that's an area, as a nonprofit that we feel as a commission we'd like to expand, then we're happy to take a look at that, and I offer that.
That would be like the type of thing to have on the card. Voices of resilience, things like that, support group. But yeah, we'll get it.
Because you're right, from bereavement, sometimes, you know, they're dealing with so much right then and there, that a program, and our programs last for weeks and months, and a lot of families involved. And we're doing it hybrid now as well, so that people can do it during their lunch break at work and things. So if it is a need and demand, that's one area where a nonprofit can step up and fill that gap and make it a little bit more expensive.
Marcy got involved with this too.
Yeah, the grief counseling.
Yeah.
I know St. A's has a grief counseling group. And they did many of the other trainings in town. And that's cool. Let's see, all right, next on the agenda is the AARP competition and grant.
Every year, AARP nationally and in the state has a contest, they tend to give the money to inner cities and parties and et cetera, why we started the city and behind that. But we have two of the most innovative programs in the country right now for seniors. And so what I would like the commission to do is authorize the commission on the team to provide 2 grant requests. One on the Waveney Telemed, one on the Silver Hill Urgent Assessment Program, and submit them in these competitions. I start with the downside of this because again, we have probably small chance of actually getting funding from this, and even if you do, it's $25,000, maybe $50,000 to the other side. The link is the merchandising value of this. If we're trying to raise money for the urgent assessment, particularly, as well as the COVID, we need all the help we can get, and it would. I believe part of the value of submitting a request and maybe winning, because we again are so unique. that maybe we will do it. Anyway, but the benefit is to be able to merchandise the fact that we won a national contest for the ultimate. We are the ultimate livable community as designated 10 years ago by the Health Commission, Health and Human Service Commission. We did the senior schedule. This is just one more way of getting there. And so I would ask for your support to do this. Jan has already volunteered to do 100 volunteers. We're using 1 or 2 more. It is not a very time consuming thing other than gathering the information. But each of the agencies has their own fundraising thing. Plus, they've all put together decks to get the original ARPA money for the pilots anyway. So we got lots and lots of information. We do not need to spend a lot of time discovering, but simply organizing and getting it done. Comments and questions?
Of course, I could recuse myself from the discussion. And neither did I approach Jim to for the record. I always answer Mr. Lisher's call.
Yeah, that's a commission, sure, make a motion.
But I move that we, the commission support a grant writing team or a grant submission team for the Community Challenge Grant for AARP 2023 Community Challenges.
And how much would the grant be?
I'm gonna ask, we need to talk this through, but they will pay up to 50,000 in this little fee here. We're going to go after the budget, one that we can actually qualify immediately. The bigger opportunity is what you said. As high as 50,000, but what you look at, what they give the money to, it's mostly park benches and crosswalks and things like that. So we are offering up an opportunity that really should be a demonstration grant. But you can't get the demonstration grant until you've been awarded a flagship 1 year. So I thought 25 is separates us from the goats, as it were. But it's still doable, and we won't be laughed out. The other problem is, you can imagine, Michael bring that up now, is it coming from the Canaan. In particular, we competed 5 years ago with the telehealth thing with the state grant. They laughed us out. We're not giving any money, which is an ongoing problem, which we know from the health department and services. Anyway, now this whole thing is it's a low cost, no cost proposition. We will not be loaded with staff except to get some final input and updates. Nor the individual agencies, but we get the grant call what is pretty much fair. Just fine lines and a few.
All those in favor of Jim's motion? Aye. Opposed?
Call me up if you want to add part of something.
Yeah, and so it's Jen, it's Jim, and Greg will be involved. And any other volunteers? Pardon?
It's the question has to be in by March. And so the work will be done next year.
I think Barb wants to talk again.
No, I just said I've written that grant before. I'd be happy to help with it. But it's a bitch. I'm happy to help.
That's a miniature funny.
They're hired. Thank you all. Hope she's not driving.
She's in the back of the limo.
We're on the road. We're just visiting friends in Georgia. And we just finally got where we're going. So I wanted to tune in person.
That's good to have you.
Yeah, no, it's a great meeting.
May I make a PSA for the Ordinary People production at the Town Players of New Canaan this February, this month. It's Ordinary People, and what they've done is they've gotten Silver Hill on board, and they're working with Silver Hill psychiatrists, things like that, to even give a better performance with the mental health perspective coming into the play. And so there's a major fundraiser, Hugh Barstow family, sponsored things like that. The New Canaan Human Services, we have sponsored it with Silver Hill. The commission gave the $1,500 to help with the promotion of it. So I just wanted to get that out there and urge everybody to come. It's running from February till March, and you can go online to the Town Players.
It's only the 25th is the fundraiser.
There's a fundraiser at the on the 25th, it's $200 a ticket. All the proceeds will go to the New Canaan Urgent Assessment Program. Walter Stewart's is offering, all the hors d'oeuvres, things like that. They're catering it. A lot of town.
The carriage barn.
It's at the carriage. A lot of community involvement in making this come together. So just wanted to give that plug.
It's one of the, say it's the urgent assessment program after July 1st, I presume.
So what we're doing, there is possibly another town that is very interested in joining. It's an ideal town for us. So we'll see Dr. Gerber, myself, we're working with Weston. Dr. Gerber is from Weston. So definitely we are looking at that possibility. They're very open about it. It's just a matter of they're on board with it, but it's financial, as we well understand. But they understand the importance of it, and they seem very involved. And we're very grateful. So that would be excellent if that happens.
Would that raise the budget? Silver Hill, or would it just spread the cost?
It would spread the cost, but keeping it at 5 assessments a week.
Okay.
And that's really, we could only have one other town. So like I said, New Canaan Urgent Assessment Program, unless Silver Hill wants to market it with a different name, it would become the Urgent Assessment
Right.
Program. But once again, we are getting other towns, not the towns themselves, but residents from other towns that are paying out of pocket. But this would be free to continue free assessment services to New Canaan and Weston.
The town's still interested.
There are other towns still interested as they learn more about it and as their behavioral health. As their programs, they want to enrich them and things like that. It takes time, but definitely it's been a great beginning, and New Canaan is just ahead of the game. Trying
Early adapters.
early adapters, trying to make
Something was
it.
being floated about local TBD.
Yeah.
When does it open up on the 25th? This is all blocked. Or you
So what you have to do on the 25th, I think they sent it out to stakeholders first, and then they'll open it up. But I think it's Power House is the code. If you want to get into the $200 ticket, I think they wanted to reserve it for those that have helped with the community first with this production evening. But definitely, if you need any help getting into the site for the February 25th, let me know.
It's right on the Town Players, tpnc.org. They've got a big thing, and you can click on tickets.
After the agenda went to print, Peter sent me an email about speakers and how valuable they are for meetings. And I did mention that we discussed it somewhat in January that we would have, every 2 or 3 months, we would have a speaker. And it's great today to have kids in crisis, the domestic violence was called, so we will attempt to do that. We could have a speaker every month. If the commission wanted to do that. I think hearing from the people who give the grants to, we know what the grant would be a good start. We have a number of organizations, and then others who would be more informative to the commission and the staff. The possibilities to do that.
Yeah, the thought was, I think we all. These are great experts. Seems to be based on discussions, having experts in the room, and I think they learn from us in terms of our questions, but we learn a lot in return, and I think it's a really interesting function for us, because I've been blown away by the two groups that have come in, and I feel like it elevates our collective knowledge, and that way we all get the same knowledge in a group setting, which I find really important.
I still think, part of our mission is to bring awareness to things. I think this is a platform to do it, and certainly, Mike Dinan being here, of course, covering items. I think, but we can only do that if we get data, and we only have presenters that are presenting data to us, so we can see what the trends are. Maybe the both of you can recommend might be the next group to present to the commission that you think.
Well, if you want to go another aspect, an older, maybe we could do elder house, what happens with the daycare program. We could do the get about, transportation, what they're seeing. A lot of people have passed who have been using the get about, and there's definitely always keeping a younger resident, a younger population donating to the get about.
Yep.
It's not always,
What's the criteria to get about, like, is there
You
an
got
age?
I think Millwood Wills, there's another one, I think that gets to isolated seniors as we're getting children. Balancing it that way, so, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but maybe the meeting.
Retaining care is too, and something with the care from. The other thing is, we did have a speaker about 3 years ago, pre-COVID, another one. And it was quite informative, went through all the documents that they have. So we will.
yeah, they will come to speak, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, for you guys to curate who you think it's important, and Jen, like, if we could get Peter Cordova to come in. What's the hospital seeing, what are they doing, and maybe it builds our connectivity with Norwalk, right? Just
And where's the community assessment?
Who knows, you can.
The community assessment report.
Ever since their old person in charge, things are
That's
different.
my first question.
Well, that's what we did, Phoebe. Everything's focused on Norwalk. It's not focused on the Camden, and it's very clear in their documents. And even meetings go that way.
So the other communities like New Canaan on that, but in the old days, they had subtabs each community, such as Darien and essentially alcohol is big time versus Norwalk, which was other problems. Anyway.
Would it be helpful to have like one or two commission members take on the job? Scheduling obviously we can take input from you, but so that the onus isn't on you two finding the speakers and then communicating.
I have a big job of trying to have a sense of what we need and what we want.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we did at DVCC, now we did kids of Christ.
That would be the point for.
I had, but it's so easy to get them to come, I mean, they are happy to come, so I feel like a discussion, it's not a big deal, so I don't want to take
If
your
it
time.
becomes a big deal.
Yeah, let us
then
know.
we're happy to do
Okay.
that.
yeah, logistics and scheduling and looking at calendars, that's what I think.
Yeah, just one more email, like. sometimes
Do you
that
want
can
to
be-
include a commission member on that, so you got.
We just want to make sure that we're not asking
Yeah.
for something
I
that.
think we're just saying, if you need support from us, that's. Anything.
Really easy,
We're all ears on that.
but I think Jen's data that comes through and her reports, that's standard. Yeah, that's everything combined on those reports she's sending in, so they're great. Great to look at, and they do give a great data perspective.
We could use this for Peter's here, we could ask,
Relationship.
make that a task that you've been kind of asking, and
I have a lot going on right now. I'm sorry, cannot be my.
Not if you want to do it for you.
Yeah. Feel free, I have way too much.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's not good.
Bye, Barb. Enjoy Savannah.
Yeah.
Bye.
I'm not blowing you kids, Barb. Sorry.
Subway. Because you sure, I think, yes.
Because some people want to play.
Nice, very right.
Your stuff, forever.
Oh, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. You see,
I suppose that.
I don't like confuse people. Oh, and that is. Thursday. It's not a next week. Oh.